Okay, all right, welcome back everyone. We're going to take a few notes here today, and so hopefully this will kind of make sense to you as we get going. Yeah, so the big thing today, not that, I guess I was on it. All right, big thing today, we're going to do 2 problems. As you can see, we're doing 2 problems on your practice study guide today. We did 3 on Friday, we did 2 last Thursday, so you can go back and watch those videos. Again, if you don't know where to find these questions that we did throughout, the review process, because we did review, 5-day review, we did 2 last week. So if you go to my website, so mrward.org, you could scroll down to the bottom, you can kind of see the notes that we did on a certain day. So this is like Friday. I always put the last day we did up there, just so you can see the notes for it. Now, if you don't, because that'll only show you Friday, if you just stay at the top of mrward.org or ghvmath.com and you click this little daily lessons tab up here, it'll do a little drop down, and you can go down to pre-calc. This has all the videos for the year. You can see the 2 review videos that we did right here. So there's part 1, part 2, there they are. So if you click on it, it'll show you all the details that we talked about that day. As you can see, it even tells you when the homework is due. So this practice guide is due when? Monday, January 4th. You can see that. The semester test is on Tuesday, the 5th. So that's after winter break, right? Because winter break, we're out this Wednesday early. So it'll be kind of a weird day for that. All late assignments, missing work, any redo assignments due by this Wednesday. This Wednesday. Other than that, I'm going to clear out the entire Google Classroom. I'm just erasing all those assignments in there so that no one can submit it, Sunday, this coming week and say, hey, I turned it in. No, it's going to be gone as of Wednesday night. So there's no chance to resubmit. I got pictures of all the problems, so if you're having a struggle of trying to see what that problem is supposed to look like, because maybe you can't look on the practice guide and it just doesn't look right, you can see them here. You can see all my work. So I put screenshots of all the work that we did, so you can see that, or you can just watch the video which is down here. So I have like 3 different versions that you can see. Some of these pictures kind of look blurry, so then when you look at the work, maybe they look a little bit better. So, or you can watch the video, okay? The video has picture-in-picture, so you can see me talking and hear me talking. That's why I included the pictures here, so that you don't have that weird picture-in-picture down here in the corner of my face. So I'm not obscuring the work that you're trying to see. So, all right, questions with any of the review stuff and how to find it on my website? All right, move that so it's right there. Okay, let's go through our practice guide here. So we're doing part 3 of our semester review. So let's kind of, I'm not going to go through every problem. I'm just going to flip through the questions and see if you have any initial questions for those who've been here. Problem 1, you were multiplying the two parentheses together, simplifying using the laws of exponents. If you go back to last Thursday, I did a couple extra problems where I did like a fraction where you have to distribute over a fraction, the power, like distributing through a parenthesis, and how to simplify it. So make sure you check that out from last Thursday if you didn't do that. Number 2, you'll have an adding or subtracting problem where you have to simplify radicals. You have to simplify these before you can add and subtract. 3, this is one where you have to graph and you have to look at what the domain is, that's x's, or the range, which is y's, the x-intercepts, all that. The question marks, I'll probably have those question marks written down below the question, that last question, so it says find those values. Again, that was from last Friday. 4, we talked about how to simplify this, how you can multiply polynomials and add and subtract them. That was a whole unit we did in chapter 1. Then we talked about factoring. I think we ended on that problem on Friday, correct? Okay, so that's where we got to, and again, that was all the factoring stuff from the first chapter about polynomials. So that was from Friday's stuff. Okay, what we're going to do today, we have 2 problems, as you could tell, right? There's 2 problems we have to cover. So if you can see this, we're doing 2 questions. So we're doing problems 6 and 7 today, as you can see from our outline. So let's just kind of jump right in there. So we're going to jump into problem number 6 and kind of work our way to the end here. Okay. This one is a differential quotient. We did this in the polynomial section. It was actually the graphing stuff. This is how we found min and maxes. So this is a part of that unit we did. So we're going to kind of walk through this. This formula, in fact, I'm going to highlight this. This formula right here will be printed on your semester test. It's going to be printed right there. So don't feel like I'm not going to have it there. It's going to be printed. You won't have to memorize it or anything like that. Just the little hint right off the bat, you're not going to plug 0 in for h yet. when you start the problem. You have to simplify it, then we'll plug in h of 0, because that will show you how to find, how to do the differential quotient and simplify that thing. So, all right, questions with what we're going to do on this problem? Okay, so let's talk through this one. This problem, it's a polynomial. As you can tell, it's that negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. We have to use it in this formula. So this formula. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the original function and we're going to plug an x plus h into it wherever there's x's. So I'm going to write this up here. So the original function with x plus h's plugged into it, wherever there's x's. Does that make sense? That's that part in green. Then we have a minus sign. And now in the back, you're going to have the original function that you're going to subtract off. The formula is telling you what to do. We're going to subtract the original function. Well, the original function is a negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. And then this is all over h. All right, questions on the setup. The setup is usually the part that people get caught up on. They just don't know how to set it up to start it. Usually after this is the easy part, is just simplifying it. So that part right there is the nightmare usually for most people. If you notice the formula, it's the original function with x plus h minus the original function all over h, and the function is going to be provided to you. That's the part that's down below. So this is the part on your problem, this is the part that changes. It's this stuff. I just make up a new one. I pull one from your homework, that's all I do. I'm not making it up. It's usually one that you've done previously. It's out of your textbook. Okay, questions? Okay, so let's keep going here. So how I simplify this thing. This part right here, I have to FOIL this together. Now, if you don't understand what I mean by FOIL, the x plus h squared means this. That's what x plus h squared is. So we're going to FOIL first, outer, inner, last, and then I'm going to leave the negative 3 on the outside of that when I do that. So negative 3, and if I FOIL first, outer, inner, and last, I'm going to get x squared plus hx plus hx plus h squared. That's what I get when I FOIL that together. Because it's x times x times h times x, and h times h. And it doesn't matter the order of letters you put them in. Okay, questions on that first part? Okay, what do I do with this 2 now? I'm going to zoom in. I heard it. Say it again. Distribute. Yeah, you distribute. So let me zoom in so you guys can see that a little bit better. So I'm going to distribute this 2. This 2 has to be distributed to both of these. So it's 2x plus 2h. Oh, 2h. There we go. Then we have the minus 1 after it. Okay. Now, what do I do with this negative sign? Distribute, right? This negative sign has to go to the back. It's going to change all of these because we're subtracting them all. So that'll become a positive 3x squared, a negative 2x, and a positive 1 in the back. Sorry, I ran out of space there. Can't make it fit. Writing too big. I should have picked a smaller marker. I just want you guys to be able to see that. Okay, questions up to this point. How I did anything, where something came from. If you're not understanding something, this is the time to ask. Because you can do another one of these too. I can make up a new one. You can walk me through it. We can walk through it together. So we have plenty of time today. We only have to get through 2 today. So I want to give you plenty of chances to get some questions answered. Okay, what's the next thing I should do? What do you guys think? What's my...
-3?
Yeah, I got to distribute that -3, right? This -3 right here needs to distribute to all of these pieces. Now, if you want, I know some people like to simplify that. They want to simplify, they want to add the x plus h's together and all that. You don't have to. They're going to go away here in a minute anyway. And if they don't, they'll simplify so it's something easy to look at. But okay, so if I distribute that, here's what we have. We have -3x squared, -3xh or hx, however you want to write that, -3hx or xh, I don't care how you write it, and then -3h squared. So that's distributing the -3 over that parenthesis, right? In the back, I still have those same items that are back there because all of these items never changed, right? They're still all back there if you can see those. So I still have that 2x, the 2h, the -1, the plus 3x squared, the -2x, and the plus 1. And this is still all over h. Kind of running out of space here. We're almost done. Okay. What should happen if I did all my steps correctly up to this point? What should take place?
All the x's out?
Yeah. Everything that doesn't have an h that's on the top of this fraction should go away. If it does not have an h, they should cancel out. That's how, it's kind of a safety check to see if you're doing everything correctly. Like for instance, the -3x squared, positive 3x squared. You can see, they canceled out. One was negative, one was positive. The 2x and -2x. One was positive, one was negative. The 1 and -1. You can definitely see things that don't have h's go away. And so here's what I'm left with. Questions?
Can you combine the two negatives?
Yes, yeah, the 3xh's, 3xh's, yeah, so that would be what, -6xh's or hx's, however you want to say it. Yeah, I'm not going to do it yet. You'll see it here in the next step. Okay, what do we have to do with that h on the bottom now? Yeah, divide everything by the h. Yeah, you guys are absolutely right. So if I divide everything here by the h, what happens here is that you're going to cancel one h, just one h, from every single item. This is called the law of division, right? You can divide everything by that one h on the bottom. So this ends up being a -3x, a -3x, a -3h, because I canceled one of them, right? And then the +2 in the back, because I just canceled out one of the h's on that. That is technically the differential quotient. That's technically the answer. Now, how you'd actually go further is you'd combine terms like we were saying earlier and all that good stuff. You could plug in 0 for h if you wanted to. You don't have to. You could leave it right there and you'd be fine. But like what Paige was saying earlier, she was asking if she could, combine those x's. Yeah, this would actually combine to make -6x's and -3h and +2. This is the same thing, right? It's the same answer. If you combine like terms, same thing.
So you don't need to plug in 0?
No, you don't need to. No, it's not required. No, when we did these problems in class, I know like one of the instructions said you had to find a max or min. So you had to go further. I'm not going to require you to do that. I just want to see if you can do this step, if you can just kind of simplify this thing down. That's really all I care about. It's not asking for a max or min on this problem, so you don't have to go further. Because I want to keep this like pretty straightforward. I want to see that you can do this stuff and kind of not waste the time to going further, because going further takes a lot of steps. So I want to keep it kind of basic. Show me that you know what you're doing. All right, questions with any of this stuff so far? Because we can do another one. If you're like that didn't work for you, like maybe you just need to see another one. I can make up another one. Doesn't matter. So hiccuping.
Can I go use a drink?
Okay. Again, if you need to, just watch these videos over and over and over. You can go back in the notes, the videos we've done, and kind of look through my website and kind of see when we did, the differential quotient stuff. You can see it from the notes when I typed it up on my website. You can watch the videos where we do that stuff in class. So it's the beauty of having some of those old videos. You can do that. Obviously, this stuff was from chapter 1, so. Okay. Any questions before I move on? Okay, let's move on. We're going to move on to the next one here. I'm going to take a screenshot of that before I move on. Okay. All right, this is our last question of the day. It's a race format question. You always have to have one. This one where I want you to describe how to graph this thing in words. So on race format, if you don't know what that stands for, I'm going to circle it up here. Race format means you restate and answer the question, you clarify, and you expand, right? Well, all I want you to do in my race format question is describe how you would graph this thing. You don't have to go graph it. I'm not asking you to do that. I want you to describe all the pieces we do for the 7-step method. So like, how do we find where the tails go? How would you describe that to somebody? How would you know if it's symmetric or not? What are the x-intercepts? How would you do that? How would you find the y-intercepts? How many turning points does this graph have? That type of thing. So we're going to go through this to hopefully it makes sense to you. In fact, I'm going to type it up just so you can kind of see. But before we do that, I think it's important that we do the math first. So like if I was doing a race format question on math, I actually just do the math off to the side, maybe on a separate sheet of paper, or I just put it off to the side on this. You'll see mine. I'm going to actually just do it right here. I'm going to do all my work right here. And then once I'm done with the work, then I'm going to go start writing my little story that I have to do. Now I know I don't have a direct question that says, what is the value of x for this thing? Like I know I don't have one of those. I just want you to just start describing in words how to graph. Does that make sense? What you're going to do in your graph? So it's like writing a little paragraph, a couple sentences, 4 or 5 sentences, something like that. Just make sure it's in proper sentence format, using correct punctuation, all that good stuff. I think math for race format is really easy because you just state the answer. So if I was answering this question, the graph for the following function is, right? That's how you always start it. So we'll do that here in a minute. I'll show you what I mean by that. All right, but let's do the math here before we start. So let's talk about. I'm just going to kind of put in details so that I can, when I type up my story, it'll make sense. Where are the tails going to go? Where are the end behavior? How do I know the tails? Where are they going? Opposites. They're going opposite directions. Now, how do we know that? Yeah, exactly. The power on this, the odd power, is why the tails are going to go in the opposite direction. So in my little story problem, when I type it out, due to the highest power being odd, the tails will go opposite directions, the end behavior. The right side will go up, the left side goes down. So it kind of looks like this on your graph. Right? And it'll do something in the middle where it'll end up looking like that. The odd power told me that. If it's even, they go the same directions. And typically they go up. The only way that this would change is if you put a negative sign out front, then you flip it around, right? So if I had a negative sign out front of this x cubed, the tails go the opposite direction, so they would go up and down like the opposite directions. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see, part of the 7-step method. Let's do the x-intercepts next. I'm trying to go in order. So tails, let's do x-intercepts next. How do we do that? How do I find x-intercepts? Say it again? Nope, that's y-intercepts. Say it? Factor it. Yeah, we have to factor. So in some way, you're going to have to describe how you're going to factor. Well, what I would do is I would describe, like on this particular problem, I would be doing grouping, right? That's the type of factoring that I would do on this problem. I would group it. Grouping method, right? So the grouping method, you group the first two, you group the back two, And I wouldn't state all the rules that we do, but I would just say, like, to find the x-intercepts, I would be using the grouping method for factoring. This is the factor, right? So in the front 2 and the back 2, right? So that's x squared. I'm going to pull out of the front 2, so I'm left with an x minus 4. What about the back? What do I pull out of the back? Negative 9. So if I pull out a negative 9 out of the back, I'm left with an x minus 4. And you can definitely see that they have the same parentheses, so I can pull that off even further. Like this, because they both shared an x minus 4. And can that group up, can that factor any further?
No.
Yeah, so it can go by difference of squares. So x plus 3, x minus 3, that's the difference of squares. It's that x squared minus 9. It's a perfect square, right? So what are my 3 x-intercepts on this problem?
3, negative 3, and 4.
Yep, 3, negative 3, and a 4. Those are my x-intercepts. So if I was writing my little story problem, I'd describe what I'm doing here to find x-intercepts and what an x-intercept is. Maybe that's the expanding part. X-intercepts are where my graph hits the x-axis. It's part of the little story I'll type out. Bless you. Most common mistake that I see people make when they do these types of problems, not the race format, but just x-intercepts, they don't factor it far enough. Right? They stopped at that part where I had the x squared minus 9 and the x minus 4, and they didn't go further. They didn't recognize they had a difference of squares. You have to know your 5 rules of factoring. I said that the other day when we did, what was that, problem number 5, we had to factor. You have to know your factoring. That might be something you want to get some practice on. Okay, now we're going to do the y-intercepts next. So Abby, what were you saying earlier? For y-intercept, what do we do? Yeah, plug in 0 for all x's. That's how you find a y-intercept on your original problem. So I go back to the original problem, I plug in a bunch of zeros, right? Now I'm writing this down just so you can see what I'm doing here. Does everyone see I have my original problem and I plugged in zeros into everything? What does that equal when I plug in zeros into everything? 36. And that's my y-intercept. Again, if I was writing my little story, I would say that you plug in zeros for all the values of x's. Your y-intercept is 36, and that's where the graph hits the y-axis. You explain it to somebody like you're being very detail-oriented. You're expanding, you're clarifying, you're doing what you can on the race format. So again, maybe that's your 3rd sentence that you've written. Okay, so we've done x-intercepts, we've done y-intercepts, we've done tails. Now the tails take 2 steps in the 7-step method. The x-intercepts take 2 steps on the 7-step method because you have to do multiplicity. Tell me if it's going to bounce or pass through. On your x-intercepts, we're passing through each one. There's only one of each of those parentheses. None of the parentheses are repeated, so we're not going to bounce off of that. Is this thing symmetrical or not? So let's talk about that. So, is my graph symmetric?
No.
No, why not?
Because the powers aren't all even or all odd.
Yeah, exactly. So, not all powers, or exponents, maybe I'll use that word exponents, are even numbers or odd numbers. So we can definitely see this original graph is not symmetric. The last step. How many turning points should this baby have?
2.
2 turning points. So turning points it will have 2. Now here's the reason why it has 2. It's because you take the highest degree and you subtract 1 off of it. Your highest degree and you subtract 1. Ooh. So these are all the things I'm going to type in my little like race format. And you write your little paragraph. And yes, I do want you to write your little paragraph. Get some practice with it. I'll be pretty generous on this. I'm not an English major, I understand that. So, but I do want to see that you're writing down. Now, again, what I'm doing here on this little piece of paper, while I'm doing all this, this is what I would do like on the side, or I do this on a separate sheet of paper to get all my thoughts, like it's like an outline. And then when I start typing it out or writing it down by hand, because that's what you guys will have to do, you'll have to write it out by hand, you'll write down your paragraph, right? So you have to do the best you can. So I'll get you started. I'll show you kind of what I'm expecting. Now that we have all this stuff written down, hopefully it'll make sense to you as we go. So I'm going to use my little keyboard case and we'll start typing this stuff out. Okay, and I'll go to the next slide here, just so you can see this. Oh, come on. Stupid mask. Stop blocking my iPad. Okay, so let's write this down. Okay. Okay, we ready? Okay, so the graph for the following function is found by right? Because again, when you do race format, you have to state the question and then we're going to answer it in the first sentence. So we're going to just start going off right off the bat. Now, if it was like an algebra problem, where it said find the value of x, my question would be, or my first sentence would be the value of x is, blah, right? But for yours, we have to be, describing how we're finding the graph. So, first sentence. What was my first thing we talked about? It was the tails. Where do the tails go? Yeah, the end behavior for this graph, or for this function, will have the tails going opposite directions. The left side of the function goes down. The right side of the function goes up. Again, you don't need to be writing all this down right now. You can write this out for yourself later. I'm just...
Put this on your website?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm taking screenshots of this. Yeah. So. Okay, I'm not done yet. I'm just trying to show you kind of an idea what I want to see. You're writing down in details. Now, obviously, you'll probably write it more eloquently than I will. I'm just being very just blunt and to the point. Here's what it is. This is due to the highest degree being an odd number. Now that right there, this part right here, in fact, I'm going to highlight that. That simple fact, why I wrote that sentence right here, is expanding, right? I didn't need to write that. I'm clarifying why we're doing this, but expanding further, why did the tails go up and down? It's because that highest degree was an odd. Okay, so the next part here, what was the next? X-intercepts. The x-intercepts for the are, what was it? It was 3, -3, and 4. We found these values using grouping method for factoring. and difference of squares. Do you see how I'm like being very blunt and how I'm writing all this stuff down? Again, you will have plenty of space to do this. Obviously on the bottom of your paper, I didn't give you a lot of room today, sorry. On the test, I'll make sure I spread that out a little bit. You'll have a little more room to write. What about y-intercepts? What was it again? The y-intercept was 36 because we used the x value of 0 for the function. Yeah. Okay, etc., etc., etc. I think you get the idea what I'm doing. I don't think I need to go further. I think you can write down your little sentences, because obviously we wrote down all the math. In fact, I'm going to take screenshots of this. There you go. I'll put this on the website like always. Alright. Alright, any questions with kind of the methods we've been doing here, what we've been using? Okay, just do the best you can. You know, I'm being really detailed here. I'm looking for 4 or 5 sentences, you describing what you did. You know? It's probably worth about 10 points. 1 point for, you know, just getting the right values, because I'm going to look through your paragraphs and see that you have the right x-intercepts, you have the right, you know, y-intercepts, you have the right, you know, where the tails go. I'm looking for the details, that you have your, you know, your information correct, and then the rest of the points are just, did you put it in the right format? did you actually write your sentences down? Did you have, you know, correct punctuation, that type of thing? I'll keep it pretty easy. It's 10 points, so that's pretty standard. Some of the other questions on this thing are worth more than that, so. All right, questions though? Okay, tomorrow, I think we have 3 problems tomorrow, is that correct? So these are easy. We don't have any race format tomorrow. It's pretty much just cut and dry. I think we have a long division problem. We have a couple graphs coming up, I think, on Friday, I think. We have 2 graphs on Friday. I think we have 1 graph tomorrow that we have to draw. So I think it's a parabola or an ellipse tomorrow. So be kind of ready to go for that stuff. So, all right, but that's it. That's all I got today. The rest of the time is yours. I'll be plugging some of the late work and some of the missing work and some of the stuff that people have been submitting, some like redo assignments to me, so I'll be plugging those in. I have some time after school today before our games start. A lot of games. We have, I think, JJV basketball tonight. We have girls basketball only tonight. Boys don't play tonight. Girls start at 6:15. It's JV and varsity tonight only for girls. It's home. And then tomorrow we have a quad tomorrow, so we have all the games. We have, you know, girls and boys tomorrow, and that's here at home against Eagle Grove tomorrow night. So then Wednesday we're obviously out early. I think a 1:25 dismissal if I'm not mistaken. So be ready to go for that. So this practice guide is due on Monday the 4th. So make sure you're not losing it. I sent you an electronic copy by email in case you misplaced this thing. But yeah, that's it for today.